If on the right-hand side of the citation network, you would see the number of citations that this paper has received, 3275, right? So if I just focus on the citation network, then here is the citation network, 3275, and these are the number of citations which this paper has received. Then 12 references were used to write this particular paper. We've already seen this part in the basic series. Yeah. Now this is where the related record tab is located, just below the references. Okay. So this is where you need to click. Exploring and finding potential co-authors, funding agencies, organizations, it's all very easy. Related records makes it very easy to find and explore a lot of information like authors for collaboration, funding agencies. You can help find organizations having similar research interest. You can look at other related areas. You can find the publication trend over the years. You can explore the latest research trends. All of this can be found easily using this particular option. Yeah. Now, that was the end of my presentation. Like I said, on purpose, I try to keep very, very short presentations so as to, maintain your interest. These are the details. This is my detail. If you have any query, if you have any question, if you want to write something to me, of course, we welcome any sort of feedback. If you like the series, please write in to me, giving your feedback. If you feel there's any scope of improvement, of course, that is more than welcome. I would love to hear anything which helps me improve in my WebEx sessions, right? So please feel free to write into me. My details are right now in front of your screen. Anyways, I'm moving on. So let's get back to the demo. Yeah. And I'm trying to keep this slide in front of me just to make sure. Can you please come to slide 2? Okay. Dr. Rudra, I'm right here on slide 2. How to find the suitable journal? Okay, just give me a minute. Let me just go on the chat window. How to find the journal best suitable? Okay. So there are many ways of finding the most suitable journal. Well, the best way actually is EndNote. And there is a separate WebEx series run by my colleague. Her name is Subhashri. She is doing a WebEx series on EndNote as well. Please make sure that you attend that, right? There you'll get to know how to find the most suitable journal. The best way to find suitable journal is actually using EndNote. But yes, even Web of Science can help you in finding a lot of journals, and we'll tell you how to do it, right? There are more questions coming in. Share the link. Okay. Yeah, sure. So, well, actually, the series, I'll just have to check with Subhashri when the series will start, and I'll, of course, send the link to you. Yeah. I have all your email addresses, all the people who are listening to me right now. Since you have registered, I'm sure during the registration process, you would remember that we had asked you your email address, right? And the fact that you are listening to me means you have already entered that email address. You have already registered yourself. So since we have your email addresses with us, don't worry. Whenever that series starts, I'll send you that email, right? And make sure that you attend the series on EndNote as well. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, here we are on Web of Science. So very quickly, I'll just conduct a search on, okay, engine. My favorite keyword, very easy to start. Just randomly, I'm putting any keyword. You can, of course, put in the keyword of your choice, depending on your research interest. You can use your own keyword. I'm just putting a keyword of engine, right? Obviously I'm getting a lot of results. I'm getting more than 180,000 results. Let's sort these in terms of citations. Okay, so the results will now be sorted by citation. Give me a minute. Okay. So the results are now rearranged, and here it is. So this is actually the same example that I used in my presentation. If you look at the presentation, this is the same record. The anatomy of a large-scale hypertextual web search engine. This is actually the same paper. The anatomy of a large-scale hypertextual web search engine. Yeah? Okay. Now, let's click on the paper. Alright. So this paper, this is the title of the paper. These are the names of the authors. The two authors. These two people. Yeah? Okay. Now, this paper has been cited 3680 times. It has got 3,680 citations in the core collection. If I club all the databases, then it has received 3,888. This is the number of citations if I club all the databases that are there on Web of Science. But if we were to focus only on the core collection, then this paper has received 3680 citations. And like I said, I've explained in the basic series, but I'm repeating again. If we click here, it will take us to these 3680 papers. Very, very helpful for literature review, right? And as all of you are researchers, you would know that when you write a paper, you would be using some other papers as your references. Similarly, for writing this paper, these two authors have used 12 references. Here are those 12 references. 12 cited references. Again, hyperlinked, which means if I click here, it will take me back to those 12 papers which were used as reference. Yeah. Now here comes the part, the interesting part. View related record. Yeah. Okay. If I click here, just look at the number of records that are there. 291. What does it mean? See, when we click on related record, let me just go back. Let me go back. See, there were 12 references that were used to write this particular paper. You really need to understand this very, very clearly. Of course, okay, there seems to be someone who's not on mute. I'm surprised. Just give me a minute. Okay. Again, I've put everyone on mute. All right. This usually happens when someone new joins in, and the rest of you are already on mute, but this new person who joins in is usually not on mute, so that's what I had to do. Anyways, coming back. So 12 references were used to write this particular paper. Yeah? But what I'm now going to say is that some of these 12 references were also used by other authors in writing their own papers, right? And that is what related records is all about. So some of these 12 papers were used by other people to write their own papers, right? So let's find out, and that's how it is related. So 291 papers were written by picking up 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, any number of references from those 12 papers which we just saw. Let's take an example. The example is right here. For example, this paper. This very first paper has, the authors have used 18 references to write this paper, out of these 18, 4 are shared references from the previous paper. You remember in the previous paper there were a total of 12 references. Out of those 12 references, 4 references were used for writing this particular paper, right? I hope I've made myself clear. Similarly, in this case, for this paper, right, there are 2 shared references. So 2 references were used to write this particular paper. Yeah. So that is what we mean by shared references. Let's take another example. Let's say swine flu. Okay, that's a good example. Let's take the example of swine flu. Okay, so this is the paper that I'm going to pick up. And see, 20 references were used. 20 references were used to write this particular paper. Again, there is some noise. I'm surprised. It seems people are still joining in. Okay, yes, somebody has joined in very, very recently. Hence, that person is not on mute. I request everyone to please go on mute. Everyone, please put yourself on mute. Okay. Anyways, let's get on with it. So what I was saying is, for this particular paper, there were 20 references used. Okay. So let's go to related records. Just remember this number 20. So out of these 20, let's see how many other records are related. And you'll be surprised, more than 17,000 papers are related to the previous paper. My goodness. So those 20 references were used for writing more than 17,000 papers. Can you imagine that? Wow. For example, in this paper, there were a total of 34 references used, out of which 7 are shared from the previous paper. So the 20 references from the previous paper, 7 of them have been used to write this particular paper. And that is how we establish the relation. So if the same set of papers is being used to write 2 papers, then those 2 papers are obviously related, right? And that is the basis of finding collaborations. Because let's say there's someone who has, let's say I have written a particular paper which has 20 references, and now you are writing a paper yourself, and you have picked up some of the papers which I have used as reference. You are also using some of those papers as your reference. It simply means both of us are researching in the same area. Our research interest is the same. Hence, the 2 of us should be collaborating. That's the best way to say it, right? So right now, when you look at these 17,000 papers, the best way is to go to analyze. So I'm going to analyze these 17,000 papers, right? And now, whatever that you need to find, if you go back to the slides, whatever that you need to find, it's quite easy. Authors for collaborations, funding agencies, organizations having similar research interest, other research areas, publication trend over the years, exploring the latest research trends, everything is visible right here. So if you want to find, let's say, publication trend over the years, publication, just click here. This is the publication trend over the years. 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and so on. Yeah. We have already seen the analysis tool in the previous session. Just that, we are now using the same tool for a different purpose. You want to see which are the organizations that have written these more than 17,000 papers, which are the organizations that are doing research in the same area as you are in the field of swine flu. Okay, let's find out. These are the organizations. Here is the list, right? These are all the institutions that are doing research. For example, Harvard University in the field of swine flu has already published 475 papers. University of Toronto has already published 420 papers. Similarly, University of California, 419, and so on, right? So these are the best institutions for you to collaborate. If you want to look at authors, funding agencies is right here. These are the best funding agencies, right? A list of all the funding agencies. Authors, these are the best people to collaborate with. For example, this guy, Vincent, J.L. Vincent, he has already written 212 papers in the field of swine flu. So if I want to collaborate with him, if I want to make him my co-author, I need to get his details, right? And how do I get the details? How do I contact this author? Simply click on this and go to view selected. So I'll be getting 212 papers by this particular author. And now you can just click on any paper. We've already seen this in our very first session. Just click on this and you will get the contact details. How do you get the contact details? These are the These are the names of the authors. Sorry, these are the names of the authors, all of them. And you can get their details, their addresses from here, right? Uh, in this case, there is no email address, right? Usually there is an email address given just below the address. This is the place where you see the mouse. This is where the email address should appear. But in this case, guess what? The email address is missing. And why is the email address missing? The answer is right here. Whenever you see the email address missing, don't panic. It's simply because of this reason. This paper was published published on 8th of March 2001. Back in 2001, email addresses were not very popular, right? The trend of email addresses is predominantly seen after 2005, right? For example, if you see any paper that was published in 1960s, 1970s, you will not see email address in those papers because back at that time there were no email addresses. The concept of internet and emails was not there at that time. Let me just go back. Let me look for another paper. If you really want to contact this guy, no problem. Just keep in mind the publication date. For example, see, this paper was the second paper. This was published on 30th of August 2009, right? I'm very, very likely to find an email address here. Let's click here. There you are. The email address is right there. Yeah. So you can contact people. So this is how collaborations can happen, right? So if you really want to contact this author, I've already told you how to do this. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to our search history and let's look at those related records of 17,000. Yeah. Okay. So when we go to analysis, like I said, you can look at authors. You can even look at the leading journals. So if you remember, I said, in fact, Dr. Rudra had asked me which are the most suitable journals. Well, if you are a researcher in the field of swine flu and influenza, whatever this is, from swine flu, influenza A, H1N1, if you really feel that this is what you're researching in, right, then just go to source title. Source title is what you should be looking at. Yeah. Source title is nothing but name of journals. So just click on this and you will see a whole list of journals. So if I'm a researcher in this field, well, I know that critical care medicine is a journal that has already published these many papers in the field of swine flu. Intensive care medicine, 701. Critical care, again, 582, and so on. PLOS ONE, 451, and so on. Right? These are all the name of journals. So this is the best way you can look at the best. This is a way where you can look at the best journal, right? So if I were a researcher, if I'm publishing, I would actually consider this as my top priority. I would want to get myself published in this journal, right? And so on. So it's right here in front of you. Let me have a look at that. I hope I've covered everything. Yes, I have. Yeah. Again, another use case. Now, whenever you're using Web of Science, right? Let's go back. Let's go back. Now, if you're using Web of Science, right, and if you're typing a keyword like this, swine flu, what is the benefit of, what is the other benefit? How can you make the best use of related records? I've already shown you there are a couple of ways that you can use related records, but what I'm about to say is that if you're using Web of Science, just a minute. So if you're using Web of Science, you just need to find one paper that is of your research interest. Yeah, using all the filtration criteria. Let's say if I'm a researcher in the field of swine flu, I click on search, and I can, of course, since I'm getting these many papers, no problem, I can actually look at other research areas. If I'm from general internal medicine, I can click this. You can use various refining techniques, right? The idea here is to shortlist one paper of your research interest. If I am from infectious diseases and general internal medicine, okay, I can do whatever I want. I can play around with the platform. That's fine. All I need to do is go through a couple of titles and get one paper which I feel is related to my research interest. Yeah. Okay. I'm just assuming here. Let's just assume that if this is that one single paper which is of my research interest. Yeah. Okay. That is your ultimate objective. You just need to find one good paper of your research interest. Let's say if this is that one single paper which is of my research interest, then the best way is to go to related record. Right now, with a great difficulty, I have found one paper of my research interest, but I want to find more of such papers. Then you click on related records. Mind you, there are 47 references. I'm sure you'll get a lot of related records from this. Let's see how many related records. More than 4,700 papers. 4,700 papers are there which have related records. Just look at this very first paper, right? This has used 120 references, out of which 16 are shared from the previous paper. The other point that I want to make here is, see, I have used, let me just go back. I have used swine flu as my keyword. What is the other benefit of related record? Now, swine flu, the terminology of, since I'm not a researcher in medicine, but I'm just assuming here, the terminology, the word swine flu came into existence in which year, right? You can actually Google this and find out whenever it came into existence. Let's just say that if it came into existence in the year, let's say 2001, for example, right? So I'm sure it would, swine flu, the word came into existence in 2001, but this disease would have been existing much before that, right? For example, Ebola virus. The word Ebola came into existence somewhere in the 2000s, right? But the disease of Ebola virus, the disease was existing much before that. At that time, it was called something else. As in this case, swine flu. The word swine flu came into existence. Some researcher would have given this name, swine flu, right? But the disease would have been existing much before that. So, what related record does is it captures even that name, right? This is what we just saw. And since I'm not a researcher, I'm actually able to make out that there is something like that which happened. For example, general internal medicine and infectious diseases, that's what I selected earlier. I can tell you what it was called earlier using Web of Science. You remember I selected this paper? This disease, I'm just assuming, I think it was called Guillain-Barré syndrome. I don't know what this is, but yeah, somebody from this research area would know better, right? So, something like that. Swine flu, the name, actually before swine flu the name was given, it was called something like this, some kind of a syndrome, right? So this is, you can even do this with Ebola, right? You can do Ebola. You're getting the point, right? You can type any keyword and you will get those records which were not your, where this keyword doesn't even appear, right? So yeah, so like I said, sir, I stand corrected. Thank you for updating me, Dr. Shivendu. See, like I said, I'm not a researcher in this field. I'm just assuming here, but the point that I'm trying to make still holds good. The point I'm trying to make is that whatever name that you give as a keyword, whatever keyword that you enter, related records is able to get you papers where that keyword does not even appear, right? But it is still related, and that is the benefit of this related record, and this is the point with what I was trying to explain in my slide here. This one takes research to the next level, finds papers which may be having different keywords but are related. Right? That is the point that I was trying to explain. And this is one unique feature that is available only on the Web of Science. Yeah. Okay. So I have covered today's session. In fact, I've covered it well in time. We started at 11:30, and we were supposed to go until 12:30, but it's already 12:08 according to my system timing, 12:09 actually. So if you have any questions, I'm willing to answer. If you have any questions related to any previous session, since we have time, we have some time left, so I'll be happy to answer any questions, even for the previous sessions. You can ask me any question related to the basic series or even the advanced series, and I'll be happy to answer. Okay. Well, please put your question in the chat window, and let's go one by one. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to the chat window right now. Okay. Ms. Sugandhi wants to ask, how can you use multiple keywords? How can you use multiple keywords? It's actually quite simple. So when you start your search with Web of Science, right, just click here, you're back on the home page. How can you use multiple keywords? See, you can type a keyword here. You want to use multiple keywords a couple of ways. The best way that I would recommend is add another row. You can add as many rows as you want. You can keep on clicking here, use these operators and, or, and not, and type, let's say, diesel engine. So I'm typing diesel and engine. And I can say biofuel. Or you can use any, I can use or here. Right? So you can use a combination of things. You can type as many keywords. You can keep on adding rows using this. I hope I've answered your question, Sugandhi. Yeah. Okay, let's move forward. Multiple keywords, I've answered that. Let's see what other questions we have. Dr. Rudra, you had a question. Now, Anamika Srivastava, she says, may you please request the H-index again? So it was covered in basic series. Okay. So Anamika wants to know about the H-index. All right, no problem. So, Dr. Rudra, I'll come to the H-index, but I'm actually looking at other questions. Dr. Rudra says that he has used the same keyword, but he's got different results. Well, yes, that will happen. Sir, that will happen. It all depends on your institutional access. See, I'll give you a very simple example. You can check for yourself why it is different. If you are using Web of Science right now, then just go here, select a database, right? So just go to this drop down and you'll know why it is different. When I click here, the first option is all database, which will appear in your case as well. And the second option will always be the core collection. But apart from that, look at this. I have so many of the other databases. In your case, it will be different. If you use the core collection, again, within the core collection also, there'll be a lot of difference. If you're also on the core collection, then go to more settings right here. Look at this. I'm sure you would not have as many options. Science Citation Index expanded, Social Science Citation Index, Arts and Humanities, so on. So many options. In your case, I'm not sure if you have as many options. The third reason could be, look at the access time. I am getting access from 1900 to present for SCIE, Science Citation Index expanded. Social Science Citation Index, again, content is available to me from 1900 to present, and so on. You have the timing right here, right? From the time access has been granted. The reason why I have so much of access is because I'm an employee of this company, right? And that is why my organization has given me the complete access. In your case, it all depends on your kind of subscription, right? I'm sure in your case, it will not be 1900 to present, it will be a shorter time duration, right? And you will not have as many indexes within the core collection. And of course, if you want to look at the other databases, this drop down will look much different in your case, right? It all depends on how many of these databases has your organization subscribed to. Yep, and that is the reason why the number of results may vary, because it will not pick up those papers. Let's say if you have access from 1970, right? 1970. If you have access from 1970 onwards, then Web of Science will not pick up papers which were published before 1970. In my case, since access is from 1900, I'll be getting all the papers that were published after 1900. That's the reason why results are different. Okay. Okay. What is covered in Medline invoice? So Medline, we don't really, Medline or PubMed, yes, it is covered. Here it is. If I go to all databases, you will see Medline right here. It's just that since Dr. Sriram, I know that you are from Thapar University, and your university, I'm not very sure if they are subscribing to Medline, but if you are, then yes, you will get access. But if your institution has not subscribed to Medline, I'm sure since Thapar is a part of eShod Sindhu, I don't think you would be getting access to Medline. But Medline is there, right? Anyone who wants to purchase any of these databases separately, of course, we are there. You can contact us and we can help you out with that. Okay. So coming back to the H-index question. Yeah. I think I've covered the rest of the questions. The other questions I have taken up first, simply because they would have shorter answers. H-index has a slightly lengthy answer, so I have kept it for the end. Okay. Let's conduct any search. Okay, since we already have some keywords here, let me conduct a search with this. I'm getting approximately 70,000 results. Yeah. Okay. First of all, I would recommend you to please go through the definition of H-index, use Google, and you will get a lot of definitions. Of course, many of them, most of it is correct, but here I'm going to introduce you to another tool. Yeah, it's called. Okay, I've got another interesting question. I could not understand swine flu and Ebola virus relation. Well, actually, I was just taking two different examples. Swine flu and Ebola were just two different examples. So there's no relation as such. It's just that I was taking some random example. I just picked up some random keyword and the swine flu came to my mind, so I used it. And Ebola virus also came to my mind, so I used it. Ebola virus, the reason why I took it is because Ebola virus, the word Ebola was given, much later, but the problem, the disease existed much before that. And that is the reason why we generally, give this exam as an example in case of deleted record. So coming back to H-index, one way of getting information about H-index is that first of all, if you look at the top, you would have this help option given here. Go to help, Web of Science help. This is again very, very helpful, not just for H-index, but for other purposes as well. Yeah. This page will open up. And the benefit is that whenever you're doing this kind of a thing, Web of Science always opens it up in a different window. So you're not losing your search. My search is still there. I'm not losing this page. I can still continue my search. At the same time, another window opens up and I can, do whatever I want here. So just go to index. everything is arranged alphabetically, as you would see in a dictionary. So H index, alphabetically, let's find H. H is right here. This is H and H index. Click on this and there you are. We have given you everything. We have given you how it works and how you calculate H index, and we also tell you that the H index was developed by a physicist. His name is George E. Hirsch. He is the one who actually gave this concept of H index. Yeah, you can go through this in your free time, but how does Web of Science calculate H index? That is what I'm going to show you. Okay, let's look at this particular paper. I'm randomly picking up any paper. There's no particular reason why I'm picking this up. It's just that this paper came in front at the top, so I'm just picking up this particular paper. All right. So I want to look at a particular author's paper. So I've just picked up this paper. The plant immune system is the title of the paper. There are two authors. J.D.G. Jones is one author, and the other author is J.L. Dangle. Right? So I'm just going to click on this author's name. So on Web of Science, whenever you're looking at a particular paper, below that names of the authors are displayed in every case. So if you click on any particular author's name, then all the papers written by this author will be displayed on Web of Science. So if I click here, all the papers that this guy has written will be shown. So let's click on this name. And let's just find out. Okay. Oh wow, 350 papers. So this author, and it says very clearly, results is 350, and view the articles authored by this. So we are telling you that we are showing you the results of this particular author, 350, right? As per your subscription, of course. If your subscription has just 2 databases, then probably, and if he has published in other databases, so probably the result will be different in your case. Okay, but anyways, if we are looking at this author's papers, 350, the best way to get the H index is go to the citation report, click here, and here is the information. 350 papers published so far. The total number of citations which these 350 papers have received is more than 53,000. Wow. And the number, this is the number without self-citation, and his H index. Look at the H index, 104. My goodness. And again, there's a small icon here in the shape of an eye. Just take your mouse here. Don't click, but just take your mouse. And again, very quickly, we display the definition. So it's just for your information. If you want to refer to it, okay, what is this thing? Just go here and it gives you the information. Similarly, sum of time cited. What this means actually, just go here. It tells you that what is the meaning of sum of time cited and what is without self-citations. What does it actually mean? It's all given. Similarly, if you go here, it tells you all this. So this is the H index. The H index of this author is 104. And the average citation per item is 153. What does it mean? What does this mean? It means that on an average, every paper that this author writes gets him 153 citations. That's just an average, which means every paper he writes, he gets these many citations, which is a very, very high number. He's a very, very valuable author. And look at this. Below this, you will see the citation trend over the years, right? 1980, he received 6 citations, and then 17, and so on. And he's got the highest number of citations in 2016, 3727, and then 37. Oh, highest is actually 2018, 3733. Wow. Okay, so let's just say. And what is H index? H index, so let me just take this example of this particular author. So if I'm this author, then how will I define H index in very, very simple words, in layman's words? What I will say is that if I have written 104 papers, right? Ignore this, ignore 350. Just listen to what I'm saying. If I have written 104 papers and each of these 104 papers gets a minimum of 104 citations each, then my H index is 104, right? I know that if you're listening to this for the very first time, it may sound a bit confusing. So what I would suggest is please refer to Google on this, or you can even go to Web of Science, the help menu, and you can find the definition of H index and please refer to it, right? But this is perhaps the best parameter for analyzing the author's work. Nicely explained. Thank you, Namika, for giving this giving this message. Also, researcher ID, ORCID ID. Okay, what it is? Well, I'm not going to answer researcher ID and ORCID ID right now, simply because the next session talks just about that. So on 16th April, we are going to discuss about researcher ID and ORCID ID, right? So let's keep that discussion postponed. Let's postpone that part of discussion to the 16th, right? Okay. So let me look for any other questions. Okay. Dr. Sriram says, does WAS provide any API to get data on H index, citation, etc. for an author embedded in web page? If yes, we subscribe Web of Science. Yes, sir, APIs are there. I know what you're asking. In fact, there's one other customer here in Delhi who actually wants the API thing. Yes, it works. It works very well on Web of Science, but it is a separate subscription. So even if you have Web of Science, we can talk about this. You can write to me separately, or you can call me on my number. You have my number with you, and we can take that discussion forward. Okay. Sugandhi wants to ask, what is customization feature? Okay. Customizing. This is probably the very first part of the basic series where we explained about customizing. What is customizing? Okay. Let's go to the home page. Click on Web of Science at the top. You're back on the home page. If you want to clean up this page, it's such a mess. I just want to clean it up. So just click on Reset. You're back to original. Okay, what is customization? Well, if your organization already has access to Web of Science, then you can, and if you're on the IP of your institution, then you can use Web of Science without even signing in, right? You will see a sign-in option here. If you're on the IP and you have opened Web of Science, sign-in option is shown right here, right? I have already signed in, and that is why my name appears on top. So customizing features apply only after you sign in. Signing in is free of cost. So when you click on sign in, it opens up and it says register. You have to register and then sign in. It is free of cost for you if you are already subscribing to Web of Science. And once you're signed in, then how does customization happen? It's quite simple. Click here, go to settings. See, when you go to settings, it says edit my information. It's quite simple. Whenever you sign into, let's say, Facebook or Gmail or any other place, edit my information. Here you can go and change your passwords, your user ID, your password. Anything can be changed depending on your choice. So I'm not going to explain this part. It's quite simple. The other thing that you need to look at is select a starting application. Click here. What are the applications? These are the applications. These are displayed right in front of you. Depending on your subscription of your institution, let's say if your institution subscribes to only, let's say, the top 3, Web of Science Core Collection, Biological Abstracts, and Bio Citation Index. If these are the 3 indexes that these are the 3 databases that your institution subscribes to, then you can select any one of these 3 as your starting application. What do we mean by starting application? Since I've selected Web of Science Core Collection, Let me just go back and I'll show you what it means. So depending on whatever you choose, you can submit the changes and it will happen. Select a language. Again, it's simple. English and a couple of other international languages are there. You can switch to those languages if you want. I'll not show this part. It's quite simple. Coming back to the starting application, it is a simple way of starting, right? So every time you sign in using your user ID and password, select a database. This is your starting application. Every time it will open up the core collection. If your starting application is all databases, if you go to the settings and make your starting application as all database, then what will happen? Every time you sign in, it will start with all databases like this. This is what it will look like if that is what you choose. I prefer to use the Web of Science core collection because it has a lot of options. Again, since this question has been asked, let me explain this. See, if you select any other application, if whether it is all database, except core collection, if you choose anything else, all database or biological or any of the others, what will happen is just click on this option, this drop down. Look at the options. You will see very, very limited options, right? There's hardly any option, just about 5 to 10, probably about 7, 8 or maybe 10 options here. However, if you choose the Web of Science core collection, now just look at this drop down. So many options are there. So many of them. And that is the reason why I prefer to keep Web of Science core collection as my starting application. But it's all your choice, right? It all depends on what you like. Okay, let's move on. Yes, it means default settings of your account. Correct. Any other question in the chat window? I think I've answered most of the questions. If you feel your question has not been answered, please mention it in the chat window and I'll take it up. Anyone who wants to ask me any kind of question, please type that question in the chat window. Web of Science core collection means SCI? Well, no. When you are using Web of Science core collection, within the core collection, it is divided into, okay, let me just show you this thing. This is something that I wanted to, you should know already, okay. Since you asked me this question, let me show you how it works. See, this is Web of Science. All the databases, you remember seeing Biosys Citation Index and a whole lot of other things, and the last Medline also you saw, and the last one is Zoological Records. These are all the databases. And this is the core, the foundation, the core collection. The core collection, the inner circle, the inner circle is the core collection, okay? The inner circle, you will see it is divided into many indexes, as we call them, right? These are the indexes. Science Citation Index, Social Science Citation Index. So what you are saying, Sugandhi, is that is core collection actually Science Citation Index? Well, actually it is much more than the Science Citation Index. It also includes Social Science Citation Index. It includes Arts and Humanities Citation Index. Includes conference proceedings, book citations, and emerging sources. On the platform, where is it located? Like I said, when you choose the core collection, if you remember, these are the other databases on the outer circle. Biosys Citation Index, for example, or the last one, Zoological Records. Coming back to the presentation, look at this. Biosys, so on, and Medline, and then Zoological Records. These are on the outer circle, right? Okay, now that you've selected the core collection, where is SCIE? Go to more settings. Science Citation Index expanded, Social Science Citation Index, Arts and Humanities, conference proceedings, books, emerging sources, everything is there. Yeah. So if you are a researcher from any one field, for example, if you are from the engineering side, you would not need results from social science, arts and humanities. What I would recommend is just click on more settings and uncheck what you feel is not required, right? If you don't want results from conference proceedings, uncheck them as well. Do this. Yeah? Now you only have science citation index expanded. And now whatever keyword that you type, results are going to come only from the science citation index expanded. But answering your question, I hope you get the idea. Science citation, Web of Science core collection. Web of Science core collection is basically a collection of all these indexes. These are all the indexes that are part of the core collection. Not just one, but these ones as well. Okay? I hope I've answered your question. What is the difference between SCI and SCIE? Okay. Well, SCI, if you remember, okay, I'll have to go back a little back in history. This gentleman, Dr. Eugene Garfield, he started with this database called Science Citation Index way back in 1964, right? This was actually also the birth year of Web of Science. So he picked up a handful of journals and he created this index called the Science Citation Index, also known as SCI. Over the years, what we did was we added more journals to SCI. By adding more journals to SCI, the essence of SCI, just to keep the same essence of SCI existing, we started calling it SCI expanded. Since we are expanding the same index, we are adding more journals to it, we started calling it SCIE. So for practical purposes, SCI is a subset of SCIE, right? As of now, SCI does not exist, it's only SCIE. Okay. I believe I've answered almost all questions. In case there is any further question, please feel free to type in the chat window and I'll see if I can answer that. Okay, since there are no questions, now comes the most scary part of today's session. In fact, every session, I really, don't like this part, but I have to do it. I'm going to unmute everyone. So before I do that, again, my humble request to everyone, please, please, please put yourself on mute just to avoid that background noise, and unmute yourself only if you have a question and you can speak up. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to unmute everyone. I'm sure you'll hear a lot of background noise right now, but please put yourself on mute. Those who have not done so far, please go ahead and do it. Okay. Mr. Vikas, please put yourself on mute. I can see a lot of people not on mute. Please put yourself on mute so that people can ask questions. Yes. Questions, please. Please speak up if you have a question. Does anyone have a question? Please speak up. Hello? Does anyone have a question?